Jake Paul's team has finally signed his next opponent as they continue to try to further his professional boxing career. Jake Paul's next opponent is none other than the GOAT of MMA, a true martial artist and champion, Anderson Silva. Now, as soon as I heard about the matchup, I threw up a poll on my YouTube channel, and this is what you guys were thinking. Now, a lot of fight fans, now I'm talking about fans who are fans of combat sports. They understand MMA and they're boxing fans. They are very excited about this matchup, myself included. And this is because Anderson Silva is truly a respected legend of MMA. He has started boxing recently, which is why this matchup was made. With both of these guys in boxing now, their records are very similar. To give you an idea of who Anderson Silva is and why he is so heavily respected in the MMA community, Anderson Silva ended his MMA career with a record of 34 wins and 11 losses. In those 34 wins, he has 22 knockouts. In those 34 wins, 10 of them were title defenses. Of those 10 title defenses, 9 of them were finishes. These are just his numbers. If you aren't familiar with his fighting, go watch some of it. Anderson Silva will always be remembered in MMA as one of the best to ever do it. What does an MMA record mean going up against Jake Paul? To a lot of laymen's and Jake Paul fans, and honestly anyone really, if you really look at it, MMA accolades don't mean much at this point, given what he has done to 2 other very respected MMA fighters. But in those 2 situations, all those MMA accolades and skills did not carry over into the ring to give them victory. So why would Anderson Silva's MMA achievements be a factor when we're talking about Jake Paul's boxing against Anderson Silva's boxing? The answer is simple. Anderson Silva is just that much more better than those 2 other MMA fighters I mentioned, and at boxing as a whole. As far as pro boxing goes, again, their records are very similar. You got 5 fights for Jake Paul, you got 4 fights for Anderson Silva. But Jake Paul's opponents are questionable, save for the last 3 fights maybe. And one of Anderson Silva's fights since crossing back over into boxing was against a boxing legend, one of the best to ever do that, and he looked phenomenal. But Jake Paul has been looking better and better. What is going to happen? Well, let's see what everyone else is saying. Let's see what some well-respected experts in the industry are talking about. What are they saying about this fight?
Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva has a boxing career now, 47.
He's one of the greatest to ever do it. He beat Julio Chavez Jr., who is 50-3.
Anderson boxed him up. It was wild, and people were looking at him like, look, man, if he never fought Muay Thai and he never fought MMA, he might have been one of the best boxers ever.
Jake Paul's got some ability. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Jake Paul can't fight, but Jake Paul now has a real fight. This is a guy in Anderson Silva that at one point we thought about, he was about to fight Roy Jones Jr. That's how real he is in the sport of boxing. Dana White said that while he's tired of addressing Jake Paul, this is a real one. Because Jake Paul versus Anderson Silva shows that Jake Paul is taking his fight career seriously. But the reality of the situation is it's very dangerous for him. Because I really can't imagine that he gets past Anderson Silva. You don't just outstrike Anderson Silva. You don't just outbox Anderson Silva, regardless of his age. This is a real fight. This is a tough fight as I get to the 10-second mark. And when I got to make my prediction, I'm taking the former champ Anderson Silva.
Anderson had proven that he really can box. He beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. So he's proven that, and I always knew he could really box, but people thought it was just talk. No, I knew what it was. I knew that he knew what he was doing on a boxing ring, because I think he boxed before he started the UFC. So, this guy's like, he's not no shabby boxer. Now, how will he take Jake Paul's punch? It's going to be the thing to see. If Jake can hit him, how well he can take that punch, because later in his career, we saw him get clipped a few times in MMA because by headshots and whatever. So, we got to see how that transcends into the boxing ring. Can he take the boxing punch with the gloves, or can he not? So we'll see.
I don't see why Anderson should beat him. It depends on who's working on Jake Paul. Anything's possible.
Yes, I think that Jake needs to be prepared for that. Somebody asked him how he's training. He talked about, I'm always training for great guys. I wanted to hear specifically, how do you deal with a guy that's ambidextrous? People like to say that Anderson's a southpaw. I fought him. He was orthodox. He switches stance. That's a very unique look. And you can deal with that if you crowd him. You can deal with that if you pressure him. If you choose to stand and look at Anderson, it's not his attacks that are so scary. It's his setups. He will fool you. He will get you to look left and come and hit you right better than anybody in the sport. So, yes, I think Anderson's a big problem. I think that his style is unique. Jake's talking about I bring in training partners. You're going to find a training partner out there that can do quite what Anderson Silva can.
I mean, Anderson Silva is one of the greatest of all time. And the way that he would beat people, the creativity of his strikes, the knockouts that he delivered, I mean, they truly were stuff of legend. Since he left the UFC, he's had a foray into boxing. Anderson Silva appears to still have it. He's still got it. He's still got the guts. And even though Uriah Hall knocked him out in his final fight in the UFC, I think Anderson Silva's got a very, very good chin. Now, Jake Paul's doing his thing. Anderson Silva, of course, ticks all of those boxes what Jake Paul wants ticking. He has an amazing reputation. He's well known worldwide for being a fighter. But he's 47 years old. He hasn't won a fight in mixed martial arts in his last 6. So as I say, this is the perfect scenario for Jake Paul. But is he biting off more than he can chew? Is the problem child, is the gamble that he's going to take backfire? Jake Paul can punch. Okay, that right hand that he knocked out Tyrone Woodley with, that was a phenomenal shot. Okay, and he's pushing himself to the limit in the gym. He can clearly bang. He's clearly a gifted athlete. He's driven. He's motivated. Anderson Silva is the one taking the risk here. Okay, Jake Paul, if he loses to Anderson Silva, it's like, hey, he lost to Anderson Silva. Yes, granted, some critics might say you lost to a 47-year-old man, but that doesn't matter. Jake Paul's young. He'll be afforded that luxury. He'll be afforded that leeway to say, you lost to a legend. If Anderson Silva loses to Jake Paul, I mean, our pets' heads are literally going to fall off. Mine will anyway, because I'll be devastated, because Jake Paul doesn't deserve to have a victory over Anderson Silva at 47 years old.
Okay guys, so now that we've seen that, let me just end with my thoughts on the matter. If you stuck around to watch my input, I really appreciate it. I'm excited about it, so I think it's a good matchup. I think it was smart on him to take this, and it's a great opportunity for Anderson Silva, just like everyone else is saying. So, great fight, and I can't wait to watch it. Now, as far as how I see this going down, I'm going to break it up on both sides, okay? For Jake Paul over here, I truly see his youth being a factor. And because of his youth, what he is going to bring into that match is speed and power. Jake Paul does look fast, but what he has shown in his boxing matches is power. I would not have guessed that the Disney kid was going to come in and have genuine power in that right hand, but he does, and he has proven it with 4 knockouts. Now, amongst those 4 knockouts, you've got 2 guys who weren't fighters. They weren't serious about training as fighters. They were like him. They came from other media realms. But the last 2 people he's knocked out are legitimate fighters. Maybe not boxers, but fighters. So the kid does have power. Rewatching his boxing matches, I do see the speed that he brings as well. And of course, with the continued training that he's doing, he is upping his skills, he is training consistently, and I have to say, he is taking it serious. On Anderson Silva's side, I'm going to give specific points here that I feel edge him well above and beyond Jake Paul in boxing. Number 1 is range. He has a significant reach advantage, which Anderson Silva is very good at using. Whether he's using his hands or his legs, that man knows how to use his range. So he has range and he knows how to use it. Behind that, he has a lot of experience, striking experience. He has boxed before, he has done kickboxing, and he was one of the best strikers in MMA. He is an all-around martial artist. With that, he's able to do some truly amazing things in a cage or in a ring. And that brings me to his fight IQ. His experience leads into his fight IQ. He has a higher fight IQ because, again, all the types of things he trains in, the amount of training he has done over the years, the amount of fights he's had, high-level fights, and just all around his overall intelligence when it comes to fighting. Not just boxing, fighting in general. Fight IQ is a thing, guys, and it matters. That fight IQ will lead into his ability to throw combos. And if you watch Anderson Silva, if you watch him train, he doesn't have this speed that he used to have. He's not as fast as Jake Paul's going to be. But watch how he moves. Look at the fight against Chavez. Look at the combos he throws. He's not a onesie-twosie kind of striker. He throws combos. That's why he was always hard to deal with. And then those combos, he sets traps. He has unique setups. He has feints. That's a really skilled boxer knows how to do that. How to tap and slap before they slang. That power comes after the setups. And the last thing past his fight IQ is his eyes. And what I mean by that is Anderson Silva has seen a lot of combat. And when you see a lot of combat and you have all that experience and you have that fight IQ, you have great eyes. He can see what's coming. I truly believe this, and I say it all the time with certain fighters. Certain fighters just have good eyes. A good comparison is like a Lomachenko or Mayweather, or those kind of guys. They're good at watching their opponent and they have good eyes. They can see what's coming. Great boxers have good eyes, and I feel that Anderson has good eyes. I think he's going to see a lot of what Jake Paul is going to be trying to do, and he's going to be able to either counter it or hit before Jake Paul can get those things going. So those are all the things that I feel Anderson Silva brings into that ring on that fight night, and this is why he is going to win that fight, guys. Now, this is fighting, and as we learn with Askren and Tyron, and just half of the fights you watch, might be a little less than half, but there's always a puncher's chance. Anderson Silva is 47 years old. I do feel he can still take punches, but if he drops his hands at any point and is not kind of respecting the kind of power that could come at him, he could get caught. I don't see that happening, but that's a possibility. But I'm going with Anderson Silva. Okay, guys, thank you for watching. I really appreciate the support. If you guys enjoy the content, please be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll keep this thing going. I'll see you guys in the next video.